Hey y'all, this is Kelly from Dixie Darling's Tumblers, and today we're starting out with a 32-ounce plump from the Steel Magnolia. You guys know that I love to wrap with these cups, my vinyl, because it just fits right around the bottom and that perfect little edge, and it has no taper on this cup. And so I'm going to use this vinyl today from the Vinyl Cottage, and it's actually Halloween Please pattern 04 if you're looking for it. So I saw this vinyl and I just thought, okay, I could recreate this using pieces of vinyl and glitter and my acrylic marker, but instead of trying to recreate and redo the wheel, how about I just lay the vinyl down and then do some glitter on top of it. So that's what you guys are going to see me do here today. So I'm not going to necessarily walk through the whole process of doing the vinyl wrap. You guys can see other tutorials that I've done before on my full vinyl wraps. I'm just going to kind of speed it up here and get on with the layers that I'm going to do over the vinyl. You guys know that I like to put my tape down here so I can have a little bit of overlap when I'm trimming off the excess vinyl, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to trim off the excess around the top, and then I'm going to pull it around the bottom. I will slow down a little bit on that because you guys always have questions about wrapping the bottom of the vinyl cups and just getting it smooth, and just know that it's always like a trial and error process for me too, and it's just lots and lots of practice. So, and here y'all can just kind of watch me pull it around. You can see I kind of pull it with one hand and push with my other thumb, just so I'm smoothing it as it's coming around from the side of the cup to the bottom. And then I will mention here that I did sand this cup. I don't typically spray paint mine, but I do make sure that they're sanded really well. Otherwise, this vinyl does have a hard time adhering. So if you have a problem with your vinyl sticking to the bottom, sometimes I have found for me that it's because I haven't sanded my cup on the bottom well enough if it wants to start lifting. And especially in this little area where I'm trimming it off and I'm trying to get it down in that little seam, the vinyl that's on the cup, sometimes if it wants to lift, that's because I just haven't sanded it well enough. So when I'm using my little sanding block, and sometimes I'll go back in with a wet dry just to make sure all those little areas are down there so my vinyl will adhere really good to it. So after I've got my vinyl applied, I go in with a layer of Counterculture's Quick Coat. So I have started doing this with all my vinyl cups. After doing a couple of peekaboos over vinyl, when I went to pull the peekaboo vinyl off, it would pull the epoxy off. So I just felt like the epoxy wasn't adhering to the cup well enough over the vinyl. So I've started sealing all of mine with Counterculture's Quick Coat, just to give it a little bit of extra sealant and then something for the epoxy to grip too also. So I just use my little silicone brush here, and I will link these brushes in the description box below. I just get them on Amazon and they're really cheap, but I found them to be really helpful. And they get down, especially on the bottom of the cup, I want to seal the bottom really good. And then after I let that dry for about 30 minutes, y'all, I do go into a layer of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. I use about 25 milliliters. I just want a very thin coat before I'm going to go in and glitter. So I'm using Peachy Olive Glitters clear adhesive. It's kind of like a Mod Podge, but I prefer it. It seems like I get better coverage with the glitter. It just seems like I don't need but one coat when I'm using this. So I decided that these areas that look like glitter, I'm actually going to go in and glitter them. So I'm going to use 3 different colors from Peachy Olive Glitters. I'm going to use Knife Hand and 143 for the pink, and then I'm going to use Athena for the gold. So the navy blue is Knife Hand, the gold is Athena, and then the pink is going to be 143, all from Peachy Olive Glitters. And so I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to kind of paint these little spots. So, and they don't have to be perfect. I'm going to go back in, and all these little random abstract lines that are on here, I'm going to take my acrylic pen, my gold metallic paint marker, and I'm going to paint over that. So I don't make too much of a deal if some of the areas of the glitter, they don't have to be perfect. So, because I am going to kind of draw over with my little gold metallic acrylic marker that I'm totally obsessed with lately, y'all. And I do just do little sections at a time with the clear adhesive because I don't want it to dry before I get a chance to apply the glitter. So that seems to be where the glitter doesn't want to stick. So if you do just little sections at a time, I find that I have better adherence of my glitter. And so I'm just going to kind of move around one stripe at a time and one color at a time. And then I'm going to tap off any excess, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to come back in after I'm done with all the colors with a dry brush and just brush off the excess glitter. So it doesn't really tend to stick to the vinyl too much here, but I'm not too concerned about it because I'm going to go back in after I'm done with all the colors and knock off the excess. And then I'm just using a very tiny paintbrush here. Obviously these stripes were pretty little, so I just went in with a little tiny paintbrush where I could just get right in those little areas. And then after I've gotten all my areas glittered, I do let this dry for about an hour, and then I'm going to go in with a dry brush here, and I'm just going to brush off any excess glitter. Especially this knife hand has some chunky, so you can kind of see I go in at an angle just to make sure some of that chunky will get stuck down in there, and it really is loose when you go to put the epoxy on. So I just try to make sure to go at an angle to get all that chunky off or any excess glitter that's on my vinyl. And then after I'm fairly certain I've got all the loose glitter off here, I do go in with Rustoleum's 2X Clear Gloss, and I do a coat before I go into my layer of epoxy. So after I let that dry for about 30-45 minutes, and then I'm going to go into a layer of epoxy over this. So I'm using about 30 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. On these 32 plumps, I found that it does take about that much. I've got more than that mixed up here because I was doing several other cups, but I do use about probably between 25 and 30 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity on this 32 plump. And then I let that coat dry for about 4 hours, and then I am going to go into a second coat. Especially with this chunky glitter, I needed a second coat. So I do go in with a second coat. You're not going to be able to tell very much here from the video because it's going to kind of go from one coat right into the next coat after I let it dry. So you can see here, now I've got my second little coat here, about 30 milliliters. Again, I'm going to apply to the 32 ounce plump, and again I'm using Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin, and I do let it dry for about, if I'm going straight into another coat and I'm not sanding or anything, I do usually just do it within 4 hours. If I've got to do any kind of work to the cup, then I'm usually going to wait 6 to 8 hours just until it's not really tacky where I can work with it really well. And then after I've let this coat dry for about 8 hours, I am going to go in with my little top notch here. It's a gold metallic. I think I got it at Joann's, but I will link it. There is an Amazon link for it. It is available there. I'll link it in the description box below. You can find them there. I've just found that I like the way this one works. It's a fine tip, but it gives me a little bit of coverage. Just like I can move it around at different angles, and I can either get it thinner or I can get like a heavier coat. So I basically just decided that I was going to go around in all these little areas you can see here where it looked like there was like an abstract marker or line around through there. I'm just going to cover that up. Or I'm not really even covering it up, I'm just going around with my metallic gold pen on top of that. And then after I've got it covered pretty well, I'm going to go in with a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol. You do use Q-tips here, you can see. And then I've just got a little tiny paintbrush of any little areas where maybe they didn't meet very well, or there was like a little overhang. You know, sometimes when you pick up your pen and put it back down, there's a little dot. So I just kind of try to go back in there with my 91% alcohol here and just touch those little areas up. So sometimes I found that a paintbrush works. Sometimes I have to go back in with a Q-tip to kind of clear those areas up. But I want to make sure that it's good and clear, because once I go into another layer of epoxy, it's not going to clear it up if there's still paint on those areas. So I want to make sure that I have no extra paint that was, you know, so you can see here I go back in with my Q-tip in areas that it may still have kind of spread while I was trying to clear that area off. I'm just going to go back in with my Q-tip and a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol to make sure I've got it good and clean. And then here you can just go back in and touch up any areas that you think need touching up. You can go back in with your pen. That's why I love doing this over epoxy, because if you make mistakes, you can just wipe it right off with alcohol and go back in and touch it up and make it look like you want it to. So after I let that dry, it dries pretty much immediately after you use the pen. By the time I was done with the bottom, the top was dry. So it was probably 30 minutes. And then I'm going to go into my next layer of epoxy. And here I'm using, again, 30 milliliters of Counterculture's Artist Resin. They're medium viscosity. And I'm going to apply here about 25 to 30 milliliters again. And then I'm going to let this coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours before I'm going to go in and apply my decal. And then after that's done, I did just kind of want to walk through this, because there's times where I don't want to create an offset. I will go into my design space in Cricut and I'll just create a duplicate, and then I'll change the color, and you can kind of see I'm just going to overlay it here. And then I'm going to print it out, and on this vinyl I am going to use the premium, you can see I wanted to make sure that I show this because people ask a lot of times, the premium vinyl holographic setting. And then I'm going to cut that, and then I'm also going to show you how I do my circle. I literally just go in there to the shapes, I take a circle, I go down to edit and size it. This one's I'm going to do 2.8 by 2.8. And then I'm going to print that out on this other vinyl pattern that is also from the Vinyl Cottage, and it's Halloween Please 03. So I'm going to use that for the bottom, and then I also decided that I was going to use that for the bottom of my overlay here. So I've printed this out and applied this to the cup. I just thought this was the cutest ever, this Let's Go Ghouls. It just made me laugh out loud, and I was like, okay, I have to put this on a cup. And honestly, I went through several different colors before I decided to do the offset, the bottom side of the offset here in the vinyl. I thought, you know what, I don't usually do it in the actual vinyl, so let's try that. So, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to apply 30 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. I don't lay them right on top of each other because you will get a, a crease where they're actually like laying on top of each other. So I did decide to go in and put a layer of epoxy in between so you wouldn't see, where one's actually laying on the top. I'm going to use a pink on top, and that's definitely a color that would show through. If you use black on top, you can't necessarily see it once you put epoxy on it, but especially I'm going to use this polished metal rose gold on top, and it definitely is a color that you can show through. And then I also decided on the spider web that I would do like a gold and pink. So you guys, I had printed it off in navy and gold and pink and several different pinks, and I couldn't decide. So after I'm done with that layer of epoxy and it dries for about 6 to 8 hours, I do take this is StyleTech polished metal adhesive vinyl in rose gold, and it also is from the Vinyl Cottage. I will link it in the description box below. And because I found this vinyl to be a little touchy, I did just decide to go ahead and do a few letters at a time. So what I mean by touchy is that if I tried to lay the whole sheet down, I found that there were areas where I might get little bubbles. I don't know why some vinyl is more sensitive than others, but this seems to be one of those that is a little bit. So I just decided to do a little bit at a time to make sure that I was really getting it flat on the cup and I didn't have any areas that wanted to bubble up. And then once I've got my decal applied, I am going to go in with another 25 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. I'll let this coat dry for about 4 hours, and I am going to go into a second coat. I just found this decal, I needed 2 coats over the final one. So I am going to apply 25 milliliters Counterculture medium viscosity artist resin, let that dry for 4 hours, and then I'm going to go into a second coat, and I'm going to let that dry for about 6 to 8 hours, and then we've got our final design. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Obviously, you guys have seen me vinyl wrap. I just had some different techniques that I wanted to throw in together, and I always think it's fun to see what I can do over vinyl to kind of give it the dimension and the 3D effect. And so I hope that you guys enjoy this design. I'm trying to get in the Halloween spirit for y'all. So please give me any feedback, ask any questions that you might have of anything that I wasn't clear on. Make sure you check out the description box below because I will link all the products that I use along with some discount codes. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun, crazy stuff. And please join my Facebook group, Dixie Darlings Tumblers. We love to see what you create. We're live every Sunday night and we love interacting with y'all. I love to hear of you guys. And we have so much fun, so make sure you don't miss us live on Sunday nights in Dixie Darlings Tumblers Facebook group. And then also please share and tag me in your creations. I love to see what you guys create based off of something that I might do. I love you guys sharing with me, so please make sure you tag. I hope that you guys enjoy it, and I'll see y'all again soon.